Okay, Dr. Davis, what do you think of this descendant of T.C. Williams saying, look, if you don't want my great-great-grandfather's name on your law school because you said he owned slaves and some of the money he donated to this university is from slave trade, then give us back our money. Now, he's saying that, I don't know, it's like $25,000 or so that was donated. He's saying it's worth billions of dollars today. Do you think this argument is valid? Is this reverse reparations?
I mean, I will say, and this I'm saying in my own personal volition, I think that I've really struggled with the removing of monuments and the changing of names and doing all of that, because first and foremost, in a lot of these instances, it costs money to do that. And it's money that we're using to make those changes that could just as easily go towards the folks that we want to support. That's one. Second, I often worry as a former educator, when we do some of this erasing, what that means for education or teaching or helping people remember who folks are. And I don't think they have to be celebrated, but it does become a teachable moment. And that's a really hard one, right? Like, I think, that is a really hard one to talk about, like, what is the thing that you want to do or what's the point? Like, if it costs you $25,000 to rename, or if it's just a plaque, like, I get that. But I think the message is, what does that look like? We're having conversations here in San Francisco about like the naming of schools and buildings and what that looks like, because I often say right now today, a lot of the things that we're celebrating 100 years from now may not be a good thing. And somebody might say, oh, she was advocating for reparations. Don't put her name on the building, right? Like, so those things that it is hard to look at what happened in that sense, to judge people, individuals as individuals with today's lens. But I do think that there are some things that I think we always will agree that it was not right to enslave people, to beat people, to get free labor. But in terms of some of these things, I think we miss a teachable moment. I think we waste money in some ways.
But do you think the university owes him the money? That's the question. Oh, no. He's saying, if you don't want my name on your building, and that was the agreement, that I give you the money and you name the building after me. And now in this era where it's no longer cool to have a building named after a white guy that owned slaves, if you don't want my name, give me my money. So Cheryl, you say no, it's he shouldn't get the money back. What do you say, Melanie? Should this T.C. Williams descendant get the money back that his great-great-grandfather, Thomas C. Williams, gave to the Richmond College?
I say, heck yeah, give him his money back. Absolutely. Give him every dime back. I mean, and again, I mean, to the good doctor's point, it's ridiculous to do something like that. A lot of times that stuff costs money. They could use that money if they want to, do good. They could use that money to provide scholarships for people from socio economically depressed backgrounds who have the chops to make it into that college, instead of spending that money getting rid of that dude's name all over the building, in my opinion. So the University of Richmond, teach about that history. Teach about the history.
Well, the University of Richmond says it reserves the right to remove the name of a person who directly engaged in the trafficking or enslavement of others, or someone who openly advocated for the enslavement of people. And that's according to its naming guidelines. So they're saying we're not just randomly taking T.C. Williams off of our building or off our law school, that we have some guidelines. And a part of those guidelines seems reasonable to me, that in your guidelines you would have, we don't want to name a building after a slave owner. I'm going to take a call. Hold on. I'm going to take a call. Fahima, you're on the line. I got 30 seconds.
Well, I'm sure that $25,000 is long gone unless it was in an endowment. But I wanted to say, in Evanston, Illinois, they use the marijuana proceeds in order to provide reparations to those who were discriminated and redlined from housing. At Georgetown University, they provided legacy scholarships for those whose ancestors were sold to save the university. And lastly, in Virginia, they providing scholarships to the descendants of those who they were denied an education because they closed the school because they didn't want to go along with Brown versus Board of Education. I don't think we should be concerned about where the money is coming from. And I would like to ask your guest, if she had a car accident and the insurance had an insurance claim, is she going to concern herself with the impact that that check she's going to get from the insurance claim is going to have on the insurance company? I think not.
Thank you, Fahima, for that question. I think that's for you, Melanie. Give me a quick response to that, because I do want to talk to Dr. Davis about the money.
That's a completely different situation. You have an agreement in an insurance situation that should you get into an accident, that you are provided with coverage, you're provided with a situation to be made whole that is not based on the color of my skin. And the people who are shareholders in that insurance company, in that insurance industry, assume a certain amount of risk based on numbers, not a journey. Side note, full disclosure, I have a life and health license, and one of my side businesses is financial education and financial advising. So in an insurance situation, that risk is assumed, that risk is calculated based on things like my driving record and other statistical calculations. You know, they use math to assume those risks. So no, I would not be concerned about that. Insurance companies are designed to make money. They are making money even when they are paying out settlements for accidents that happen. So no, there is no concern about fairness, because the way it is designed is already designed to be fair.
All right. Thank you, Melanie. That's a response to Fahima's question. Dr. Davis, just got a couple of minutes left. I do want to go to what Fahima talked about in terms of Evanston, Illinois. And you and I both are very familiar with the Evanston model, the $10 million that was set aside to address the Black folks who were discriminated against in Evanston due to redlining. They're able to apply for these $25,000 housing grants. What we know about that program is that that marijuana tax has come up short, that they had 3 dispensaries in the city of Evanston that they were expecting to get the $10 million from. And then during COVID, 1 or 2 of those dispensaries closed, and they haven't actually been able to raise that $10 million. So we know that getting the money to fund reparations is really a significant issue when you think about reparations. So how is San Francisco thinking about whether it's 5 million or 500,000 or 50,000? We know getting that money isn't likely to come from your general fund. It has to be raised somehow, which means this reparations becomes a political hot potato, because you got to have elected officials who's willing to vote, probably to raise taxes or to do something else to raise this money. So how is San Francisco thinking about the money?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there will be conversations around, fees or, where that money will be raised from in terms of taxes. But I would say also we have, I mentioned before, the slavery disclosure ordinance, which was an opportunity for people to disclose whether they had made money as an organization from slavery. And there's an opportunity in that for folks to, at this point in time, voluntarily contribute to a fund that would help offset folks impacted by slavery. And I think probably what will happen over the next year, and I know when we were in Evanston, they mentioned the potential of ordinances like this to generate revenue, right? To go after the insurance companies that continue to take money on claims for Black people that they never paid to Black folks. So I think we're looking at a private-public partnership and looking at how to raise funds from entities that have billions of dollars that never gave money back to the people that they really abused and took advantage of.
Go ahead, Melanie. You got 30 seconds.
Make a quick comment that
Sure.
when we're talking about entities, and earlier I believe you said that the government was an inanimate object, and I have to offer a little bit of pushback on that. Even these banks and companies are made of stakeholders. They're made of people who are working people who have jobs, including Black people. And the reality is, from an economic perspective, anytime you raise the price of something, it is still going to negatively affect Black people. It's going to negatively affect everyone. If you get this money from these banks, these entities called banks, that money has to come from somewhere. And if it has to raise money that is going to cut the running of that bank, people are going to lose jobs, including Black and brown people. The same thing with the government. The government is going to have to raise taxes, no matter what level of government it is. That money has to come from somewhere.
No doubt about that.
policy, which raises prices for everyone, is going to affect Black people in a negative way.
No doubt about that, Melanie. Let me clear up what I meant by that. I was just trying to make the distinction between the they, indicating that it wasn't, we weren't identifying individuals. We were talking about a system, our government. And of course, our government is made up of people and we're all taxpayers. And whenever there's a policy made, we all pay the price for it. But we don't hear these same arguments when it comes to tax cuts for the rich, the huge subsidies that are given to big corporations. When we bail out the banks, nobody starts talking about fairness to poor people and to Black people. So when we have this conversation about reparations, we do have to think about parity. We have to think about how Black folks have been disadvantaged in this country and how these arguments about let's be fair have rarely come into the conversation. This is such a rich conversation. Obviously, we're going to continue to watch San Francisco. We're going to have both of you ladies back. Thank you so much for joining me. Cheryl, thank you, Melanie. Great conversation. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.